The Renaissance had Europe buzzing with new ideas: art, science, exploration. People were suddenly realizing the world was round, the stars weren't nailed to a ceiling, and maybe, just maybe, the Pope wasn't infallible. Enter Martin Luther, a German monk with more stubbornness than social skills. He didn't want to start a revolution. He just wanted the church to stop selling get-out-of-hell-free cards, indulgences. But thanks to the printing press, his 95 Theses spread faster than cat memes today. Suddenly, Europe had Protestants versus Catholics, each convinced the other was headed straight to eternal damnation. Spoiler: both sides were also very interested in land, money, and power. Luther's ideas inspired not just theologians, but also peasants, who thought, hey, if we can question the Pope, maybe we can question our landlords too. Cue the Peasants' Revolt, which Luther promptly disowned when things got too bloody. Meanwhile, other reformers popped up like mushrooms: Zwingli in Zurich, Calvin in Geneva, John Knox in Scotland, and Henry VIII in England, who basically said, I'm starting my own church because I want a divorce. Religious unity? Gone. Europe was now a patchwork quilt of denominations, each convinced they had the hotline to heaven. The Peace of Augsburg, 1555, tried to calm things down by declaring tuus regio, ius religio, whose realm their religion. Translation: your ruler picks your faith, and you just deal with it. Unsurprisingly, this worked about as well as telling teenagers to clean their rooms. Tensions simmered. France had its St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, 1572, where thousands of Protestants were slaughtered during what was supposed to be a peacemaking royal wedding. Talk about awkward receptions. By the early 1600s, the Holy Roman Empire was a religious Jenga tower. One wrong move and the whole thing would collapse. In 1618, the infamous defenestration of Prague lit the fuse. Protestant nobles in Bohemia, fed up with Emperor Ferdinand II's Catholic absolutism, stormed Prague Castle and hurled 2 imperial officials out the window. Miraculously, they survived. Catholics claimed angels cushioned their fall, Protestants said they landed in manure. Either way, Europe was ready for war. The Bohemians elected their own king, alliances formed, and suddenly everyone wanted in. Denmark, Sweden, France, Spain, Bavaria. Basically, if you had soldiers and a grudge, you joined the party. The war unfolded in 4 phases. Bohemian Revolt, 1618 to 1620. Protestants crushed at the Battle of White Mountain. Danish phase, 1625 to 1629. Denmark tried to help Protestants, got wrecked. Swedish phase, 1630 to 1634. Gustavus Adolphus, the Lion of the North, stormed in, won battles, then died dramatically in combat. French phase, 1635-1648. France, a Catholic country, joined the Protestants because politics, religion. Classic move. Armies were mostly mercenaries who fought for whoever paid them. Villages were looted, famine spread, and disease followed. By the end, 8 million people were dead, making it one of the most destructive conflicts in European history. By the 1630s, religion was no longer the sole driver of the war. It had become the excuse. Catholic versus Protestant, yes, but underneath it all, dynasties clawing for power, kings scheming, and mercenaries cashing in. Religion was the banner, but ambition was the drumbeat. Forget noble knights. This war was fought by mercenaries, men who killed for coin. They switched sides if the paycheck was late. They plundered villages whether battles were happening or not. Civilians called them the scum of the earth. And honestly, they weren't wrong. War fed on war. Armies lived off the land, which meant stealing food, burning homes, and leaving peasants with nothing but misery. In some regions, 70 to 80% of the population vanished, dead, starved, or fled. Whole villages disappeared forever. In 1630, Sweden's King Gustavus Adolphus stormed into Germany like a divine avenger. He was hailed as the Protestant savior. His troops were greeted like angels in Augsburg. But angels they were not. Soon they too looted, pillaged, and slaughtered. Then came Magdeburg, 1631, a horror beyond imagination. Catholic forces stormed the city, massacring nearly the entire population. Survivors described it as an orgy of brutality. Europe gasped in terror. The showdown. Gustavus Adolphus versus Albrecht von Wallenstein, the emperor's mercenary mastermind. Gustavus won the battle, but died in the fight. His death shocked Europe. Rumors spread that he wasn't really dead, because surely the Lion of the North couldn't fall. Without him, Sweden's cause faltered, and Wallenstein grew too powerful, negotiating behind the emperor's back. But Wallenstein's ambition was his undoing. In 1634, he was assassinated, stabbed by his own officer under imperial orders. The mighty general fell not on the battlefield, but in a web of intrigue. By 1635, Cardinal Richelieu of France decided, enough watching from the sidelines, let's jump in. France was Catholic, but sided with Protestants because politics, religion. The war spread wider, devastation deepened, and Germany became a wasteland. After 30 years of slaughter, Europe finally said, enough. Sweden and France forced peace. The Peace of Westphalia ended the war, reaffirming the old compromise. Rulers decide their subjects' religion. But something new emerged, the modern nation-state, standing above religious conflict, with treaties and laws instead of endless holy wars. Germany lost up to 80% of its population in some areas. Villages vanished, famine and plague spread, and civilians suffered more than soldiers. The war was remembered as a natural disaster made by man, a hurricane of cruelty. Philosophers like Thomas Hobbes looked at the carnage and declared, man is a wolf to man. His solution? The Leviathan, a totalitarian state to keep humanity's greed and violence in check. Out of chaos came absolutism, the age of kings like Louis XIV, the Sun King, ruling with iron order. From the ashes of the 30 Years' War came standing armies instead of mercenary hordes, separation of church and state in places like Prussia, the idea of international law and peace treaties, a blueprint for the United Nations centuries later. Religion lost its grip on politics, becoming a private matter. The Pope no longer commanded armies, only moral authority. Europe had learned painfully that endless holy wars lead only to ruin. The 30 Years' War was not just about faith, it was about power, greed, and human madness. In the name of God, men unleashed hell. And from that abyss, Europe crawled out with a new idea: peace through law, not faith. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share. Every follow helps grow this channel. See you in the next one.